People say I ain't no good, and I'm crazy as a loon. Cause I shave my head in the morning, pick guitar in the afternoon. Just like old Chief and Charlie, I like to lay around in the shade. Well, I ain't got no money, but you better believe I got it made. Cause I ain't asking nobody for nothing if I can't get it on my own. If you don't like the way I'm living, just leave this bald-headed country boy alone.
Before we get started with this episode of the Josh Terry Podcast, we want to thank all of our sponsors: Blazer 88, Project K9 Hero, Lori's Dive-In, 601 Roofing King, Down Yonder Hat Co., Cottonfield Grill, Cashman's Pub, Better Than Basic Marketing, Middle Georgia Total Health, Nobles Dirt Works, Nobles Networking, Mischief Media, Yankee Paradise South, Web Space Today, and 22 Sierra Coffee. Now, let's get into the episode, y'all. What's up, folks? Thank y'all for tuning into the Josh Terry Podcast. Today, I'm excited. Me and this fella right here, as before we was getting started right here, there's a lot of similarities between me and this guy. We're at two different age points in our life. And but I look up to this dude. He is a OG. He's a buddy of mine. He makes a real difference on social media and in the world. He's just a cool dude. I just like him so much. Mr. Chad Prather. What is up, buddy?
JT, what's up, baby?
I'm better
You're so
now.
bright. I had to put on shades now, man. I had to you're so bright. I had to
Glowing.
chill. Dude, it's good to see you, man. You and I, we keep up with each other, and I follow your stuff. You follow my stuff, and every now and then we text each other a little bit just to commiserate. But you're right. It's amazing how much our lives kind of mirror each other. But I think a lot of dudes are going through a lot of different things today that are sort of kind of running on parallel paths, and men are kind of waking up to some realities. It's kind of cool to watch.
Yeah, I think that most of us, I was having this conversation with a buddy the other day, and I was like, I think a lot of us are getting out of our dad's way. I think the sins of our fathers and our grandfathers are starting to wear off to where it's like we don't have to do things their way anymore. And I'm not knocking the way they did things, obviously, but there's so many things that they did that they normalized that really screwed us up. And I don't mean really mess us up, but it sent us down a road that there's some of those roads, there's just no return, but there's a better path. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a better way of doing shit. And I'm figuring out now that, hey, there's a better way of doing shit if I want to get something done.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because that's sort of something else you and I haven't talked about. But I keep a picture of my father. My father's been gone now 6 years, and I keep a picture of when he was in college in my kitchen. It's a big class portrait, of school portrait. And I can kind of hear his voice with certain things that are going on in my life. I was just telling somebody the other day that I was kind of feeling down in the dumps, and I was just navel gazing and dragging my dick and just really kind of feeling sorry for myself. And I could hear my dad's voice in my head saying, "Get your ass up and get back to being a man and stop wallowing in this garbage." My dad, he did that with me a few times, jacked me up and had a few choice words we'll save. But I can hear his voice, and there's so many things that I see as I get older. I see my father in me, and I'm trying to weed out the stuff that he did that was sort of not good.
Yeah.
And lessons learned from that, but yet keep the good. And at the same time, you got to balance out your own stuff that you do that's not good. I was telling somebody the other day, I said, God is a generational God. He identified himself as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's 3 generations. And I said, what I take away from that is God kind of reveals himself to people in every generation. And if you don't have that revelation in your own life, and you're using, grandpa's religion or grandpa's experience, that ain't enough for this life. So you got to experience what life has for you, that revelation of faith and experience and wisdom and trial and error and just hardship. You got to do all that for yourself. If you don't, it's sort of a wasted journey.
Yeah, well, with our parents too, it's not like they meant to be the way they were. One of the things that
Hmm.
I'm really learning is generational curses. It's like
Yeah.
my dad couldn't help the way he was and the bad things that were normalized to him because of his dad. His dad couldn't because of his dad, and so on and so forth. So, like,
Mm.
there's so many times that I've sat here and said, well, if my dad wouldn't have done this or my mom wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't be the way that I am. So now it's like, I don't want my daughter saying that. So like
Yeah.
I'm trying to correct those things so she doesn't have to weed out so much. But I get what you're saying. Like I went through a hard spell about 4 months ago now to where like, dude, I was hanging on by a thread. I was drinking like I've never drank before. There was some substance abuse like I've never done before. There was just a
Yeah.
lot. And I started seeing the bad parts of my dad in me. And it was
Yeah.
my dad is a good man. He's a very good man, but he grew up he's born in 61. So he had a good time in the 70s and 80s. And some of that shit
Yeah.
showed up when I was a teenager and when I was a kid to where I got to see it still. And
Yeah.
there was moments where I was like, all the things that I've got mad at my dad about for doing, I'm doing them right now. What's wrong with me? Like,
Hmm.
why am I doing this to myself? I'm turning
Yeah.
into the person or the things that he didn't like or I didn't like about him. I'm turning into that.
Yeah.
And but
That's a good point you make, man, because you see it and I call it, whether it's a generational curse or familiar spirits, those
yeah,
things that you're just so used to in your life that it's just normal.
yeah,
My dad he was abused, right? His father was very hard. My grandfather was very hard on my dad and all of the siblings. And so my dad, that's all he knew.
yeah.
And then I read some stuff that my great aunt had written about my grandfather, and I knew how he grew up and some of the abuse that he went through as a sharecropper in southern Mississippi. And so, just you pass that down. And so now when those anger issues, like for instance, kind of rear in my life, they want to stick their head up in my life. And I recognize my dad was a rough guy, but he
Yeah.
he came out of a rough situation and his father came out of a rough situation. And now you're trying to break that familiar spirit. You're trying to break those curses. And I don't care if it's drugs, alcohol, smoking cigarettes, just abusive nature, just, anger, all these kind of things, sexual stuff. I mean, it's weird, dude. I mean, being a human being is a weird little experience. Being a man is exceptionally weird because we got
Yep.
all kind of weird chemicals and crap going through our brains. So, yeah, I mean, but you know what's cool, Josh, is the fact that guys are waking up to that reality and going, I want to break that cycle. I want to break those. I want to make a change in myself. I quit drinking a little while back, which is hard for me to
Congratulations.
think of. Thank you. I mean, and it's weird because it hasn't been hard. Like somebody asked me, they said, how'd you quit drinking? And I said, cause you know me, bro, like people who knew me, they associated me with drinking. Like that was my
Same.
culture. That was my life. And it wasn't one of those things where I got drunk or I was falling down or going to jail or nothing like that. It's just the problems that I did have in my life, the alcohol was magnifying them. And so I got
Yes.
to a point where I just said, you know what? Mark Wills actually said something to me, which was cool. He said, I don't drink. He said, I really don't drink in life. He said, but I especially don't drink and go on stage. He said, because there's no other job that you can jump on stage and, there's no other job you can drink and then go do that job. And he said, well, yeah, singers and comedians and all that, we think we can get sauced and then go out there and perform with excellence, and we can't. And that kind of impacted me. But then I knew on a personal level that I was like, I'm holding myself back. If I can do what I do now with excellence, and I've got alcohol on
Yep.
board, think about how well I can do what I do without it. And so I had somebody ask me just yesterday. They said, "How did you quit drinking?" And I said, "I'm not trying to be a smartass. I just quit putting the liquid in my mouth and swallowing it."
Yep.
Like I literally just said, "This is it. I hit my limit. I've drank all the alcohol I can drink." And I'm in show business, so I'm out all the time. I'm in places where people are slinging it back, and they're having a party, and I'm the middle of that party having a good time with them. And I thought, man, how am I going to be able to do this? How am I going to be able to get out there and go do it? And it's like, bro, I am so high on life right now
Yep.
that I it's like I can wake up. I wake up 5 o'clock in the morning. I got energy, dude. I'm ready to run through a wall. And it's insane. You hear people talk about that. And I always thought, yeah, whatever, but here I am. I'm doing this thing. And dude, I feel so good. And I don't cast any judgment on anybody else for doing anything. I just got to a point where I said, I think I need to get back in touch with the real me. So I'm encouraged that men are kind of waking up and making certain changes, regardless of what they are. If it's holding them back, I got a book sitting back over here behind me. It's one of my favorites from years ago. It's out of print now. It's called "Let Go of Whatever Makes You Stop."
Yeah.
And it's a book by a guy named John Mason, and that's a good principle of life. If it's slowing you down, if it's a speed bump or it's stopping you, let go of it, because usually we're the ones holding the leash.
Yeah, with me, and I've cut so far back on my drinking. One thing that I was scared to death of with what I do is, one, I was scared that I would host events, I would do this show or whatever, and people would be like, he's not drinking, he's not partying, he's not entertaining. Like, that's like, I've been doing this for so long. They're like, where's the party boy? And it's like, they want the party boy. They want the wild shows in Nashville. They want the wild shows in Macon or Alabama, wherever we host them at. And when I started going to these things, and instead of getting completely blacked out drunk, I had a couple of beers, 2 or 3, and just hung out and had fun with people. No one came up to me and was like, "Why aren't you drunk?" Like, and that was my thing. They're like, "Okay, I'm having fun still. Like, I'm still enjoying myself." I'm not saying there's not going to come a time that I still have one of those red door nights and I'm out till 3 o'clock in the morning. But something that has really just blew my mind over the past really 2.5, 3 months since I really started going down this road is, I don't think I realized what it was like to feel good again until I started exercising the way I am now, till I've cut out the alcohol the way that I have to this point. I was looking for reasons to go drink, dude. Like, especially like after that breakup, I was looking for reasons to go to a bar for whatever reason, or just go do something. And now it's like, why don't you go do an extra couple miles? Why don't you listen to something that's going to actually help you better at your job or as a dad or in life? Why don't you do something that's going to make you a better person instead of something that's going to go hurt your bank account, hurt you, maybe get a DUI?
Yeah.
You already know that alcohol is going to put you in a worse situation than where you started. Why would you want to do that to yourself? My thing has always been, because I love country music the way I do, my heroes in country music are the ones that had the worst drinking problems. So I always thought, because it was normalized growing up to me, be like George Jones, be like Keith Whitley.
Yeah.
Well, I'm friends with both of their kids. And when you hear them talk about their parents, the shit that I love about them, they hate about their parents because they had to live through it. And when you start thinking about it that way, it's like, I don't want my kid going through that. I don't want to be that dude at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was with Brian Kelly recently. I love Brian Kelly from Florida Georgia Line, and I was talking to BK about. I give him a hard time. I'm like, you guys sort of came out and y'all were the punchline for a lot of jokes because people thought you weren't country music. Y'all were kind of creating your own genre, and I always ask him if it ever bothered him, and he goes, "Nah, man, I just stand in line at the bank and don't worry about it." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's about right." But I said, for me, country music was always about cheating, drinking, dying, traveling, leaving. It's music that's real life. It's sad. It's about the railroad, getting on a train.
Yep.
It's about going to prison. It's about Mama Tried and shot a man in Reno. And I was like, these days we got country music that's about, a diamond plate tailgate on a pickup truck in a pasture backed up to a bonfire with a girl in cutoff shorts with speakers going boom, boom while she sips a little something out of a Dixie cup. To me, that ain't necessarily country music. It's its own genre. Yeah. I call it country and rap crap, so it's what it is. But I love, like BK, I give him a hard time and those guys, but they're country at their roots and they get it, like they understand it, because I'm like, real country music is about that human condition and the journey of the hardship. And I went through a breakup recently that broke my heart. Honestly, it was one of those deals, and you and I talked about it at that point in time. And it's just one of those things where you're cruising along, you think everything's okay, and then bam, there it is. And so I found myself wanting to, what you want to go back to what you've always used. Let me climb in that bottle of tequila, and I can climb deep into a bottle of tequila, dude. I've looked I have looked for reality in the bottom of a lot of empty bottles in my life, and I've never found it there.
I found hell in that thing. That's about all I found.
I've had some good times, and I've had some sleepless nights and some weary mornings. and a lot of headaches, and it's caused me more damage than it has caused me good. And I just got to a point where I said, hey, look, man, I want to be the man God created me to be. And at the end of the day, I'm a person like yourself. I'm pretty comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
What you see is what you get. I try to be authentic and genuine with everybody. I've screwed up. I've made my mistakes in life. I've owned them. I was just talking to somebody the other day, the mother of my children, my ex-wife, she and I have a good relationship now. Years after our divorce, our kids are grown now, but now I can communicate with her, and it hit a point in my life where I had to go to her and say, you know what, I put you through hell. I sure am sorry. And she said, we put each other through hell, and we kind of had that come to Jesus meeting, and it was very healing. I always say that it's real easy to be the guy in control, the guy who's doing the ministry, the guy who's telling people how to live, the motivational guy, the podcast host, or whatever it is we do on stage. It's tough to be the guy that needs the healing or that needs the ministry or needs the help, because that's a humbling thing, especially for a guy who has to swallow his pride and say, man, I gotta get a hand up here. I need some help. And so my biggest mission right now, especially for men, and if anybody goes to my social media, they'll see it. I'm really calling men not to be some hyper spiritual, hyper religious, Bible thumping person. I'm just saying, listen, there's a creator, and he made you by design, and he made you authentically you. And let's get back to that and stop living up to the world's mold and standards, because man, it's so liberating to get there. Man, I've woken up, I've woke up in the alleys, after a hard night drinking and drugs and all that stuff. And it sure is, the older we get, it sure is more liberating to not feel pressure to do that stuff.
Yeah, well, it's so good too for me, to where, like, for the first time in my life, I've just realized that I don't know what's best for me too. Because if I knew what was best for me, I wouldn't be in the situations that I've been in. So it's like, you know what? I finally have said, this is what I told old girl recently. I said, look, the good Lord knows how hard-headed I am. He knew to get my attention, it pretty much had to be, you got to treat me like a toddler. You got to take away my favorite toy. If you don't take away my favorite toy, then I'm not going to know to act right to get that toy back. Because in the past, if you would have took away my favorite toy, I would have pitched a fit, I would have just raised hell, and I would have never got that toy back. But I'm at the age now to where I can accept that I've never done it the right way to where it's worked out for me. If I've done it my way, I've just completely screwed up. I really felt like after this last season of my life, after this last breakup and the past 6 months of some other stuff, I was like, you know what? This is what happened. He washed away the left. He washed away the right. He washed away behind me. He literally took away every other option from me, but besides to go forward and listen to him. And ever since, I was kind of like, you know what, this is, and I feel better. It feels natural in a way. It's almost like I'm seeing stuff a different way. I'm feeling a different way. And everything's starting to click and feel right. And it's so hard for me to describe that to somebody. It's just like everything's falling into place. And we're used to, I would expect the other shoe to drop with most things. Now it's like, let me sit there and pray about it for an hour, and it might not happen tomorrow. It might not happen in 2 days, but it's going to happen if his will wants it to happen. And if it doesn't happen, it's almost like I have an understanding almost immediately why it didn't happen. And it's like, oh, okay, because there's something better. There's another reason why it didn't happen, instead of me getting upset about something now.
Yeah, I got a tattoo right here on my arm. It says "Rhythm of Life." Yeah, and that's sort of a motto of mine. Is life has a rhythm, and when you get out of rhythm or you get out of tune, it sucks. And I realized a long time ago, I said, God, I'm a poor chooser. I'm not good at choosing my path. So I'm going to the best of my ability, I want to let you choose for me. And that's hard to do because, you get in a situation and you're like, okay, I like this. This is good. And I know sometimes you start to idolize that situation or even that person, and you put them up on a pedestal to the point where now you're relying on them emotionally and psychologically and spiritually and mentally and physically. It's good. She's a good looking woman, or it's a good looking situation, or it's an opportunity that looks good. and you kind of idolize it, and so then you start putting a little too much importance in it, and you get out of rhythm, and God will kind of slap them off the pedestal, and you're like, whoa, wait. Now I like that one. I liked all
Yeah.
that. That was
Yeah.
good. God, I was that was good enough for me. And he was like, well, honestly, let's get your focus back because I might bring that back to you,
Yeah.
but let's make sure your priorities right. Or I got something better for you, and that's hard.
Yeah.
That waiting is hard.
Yeah.
And men especially have a problem with that because psychologically, if you just boil men down to really the core concepts, men tend to find their sense of self-worth in the world based on two things: how they relate to their work and how they relate to their women.
Yep.
And you start screwing with those two things, their ability to provide or their livelihood or their ability, to be the man in a woman's life, bro. I'm telling you, you can hurt a guy real
Woo.
quick,
That
real
ego.
quick
That ego.
with
when
those two things.
That ego gets bruised on either one of those things.
Yeah.
It puts
Yeah.
you in your place in a way that nothing else can.
Yeah. So if any of you hot, crazy girls out there want to come make me feel like a man, I'll work real hard to make sure that we both feel validated. How about
Oh my
that?
God. I'm good, ladies. Y'all leave me the hell alone.
Watch out now. Let me unbutton a button here.
There you go. That a boy.
Make them throw up.
Yeah, dude. With that, there's just so much understanding. Like, because even how you just said, like, put them up on a pedestal. I had to figure out that I was investing too much of my happiness into somebody else. It was where I was determining how happy I was and my value in life off of someone else. And that was putting so much pressure on that other person that I didn't even realize it was doing. Like,
so true, bro.
And it's just like, why am I doing this? Why can't I make myself happy first? If I make myself happy, that's going to radiate happiness to them anyway. And then we're going to make each other happy. I don't have to expect you to come in and be in a good mood for me to be in a good mood. Why am I making you this object that determines everything for me? And then I started like looking back and thinking about it. And it's like, yeah, I can't do that to anybody but myself. That is the most unfair thing to do to a woman or to a partner or whatever, to just put that much pressure on you. And it's got to be the most draining thing ever for somebody to just, I just can't imagine.
That's, and that's what you just said is a mouthful. That's profound. I mean, I encourage anybody listening to this show to rewind that, especially if you're a man, and listen to it again, because I guarantee you dudes out there, y'all are putting that pressure on your woman. And because dudes do that. They do that. They find their validation in that. They want to be, the biggest dick in the room, and they want to be thought of as the king, right? And you get to a point where it becomes idolatry. And now you're no longer in love, you're in lust. And it's really out of order, and you lose that rhythm. And man, we do, bro. Men are weird. Like, so many men these days, they need that constant validation in a way where if we're not getting our words of affirmation or our physical touch or something like that, we start to feel a little, slighted, and we get a little, we start really pushing real hard emotionally. And you're right. I think we wear people out. I think you can wear a woman out. You can wear, because women aren't made to be that way.
No,
I just don't think God created women to be that. They're nurturing. They are. They're caregivers. They're great. I mean, they know how to, pat your bobo real good. But at the end of the day, that ain't the way they're wired. That's why I think that's why God created women. When you hug them, their chest sits right here on your head.
Yeah.
And we've inverted that, and now we're looking for women to nurture us, and we got to pop that titty out of our mouths.
Yeah, no shit. One of the things that I have just really, really liked the concept of, that I heard over the past couple of months, is women want you to respect them, listen to them, and protect them. A man just wants you to love them. And that's all I want. Like, and it is, when you break it down, I just want you to love me unconditionally. A woman does need more than us. And I don't need to be putting all my shit on you to drain you. Because if I'm taking away and I'm making and I'm very bad about being selfish. to be honest with you. And that was something I had to get through to somebody recently. It's like, look, I don't even realize I'm being selfish. I
Mm.
have been this way for so long. I don't want to be stuck in my way. I'm willing to do things for you. You just have to let me know what you want done for you.
Yeah.
And I want to give you these things. It's my desire to give you these things, but you have to let me do them for you. You can't make me feel like I'm a burden if I'm doing these things. Yeah, I can't, like if I tell you, hey, I want to get you new tires for your car because you need them, and I say, hey, go outside and get the size of them. You can't if I ask you 10 times to do it, I'm going to end up being like, the hell with your tires.
Right.
Like, but also too, it's like, I want to do those nice things. And there are women that want us to do them, but all we desire is just love us. And if
Yeah.
we're taking away from them, we're draining them. And if a woman's
Yeah.
not giving us love, then they're draining us. And it's such a give and take. And if you're not listening and you're not doing those things, we can hurt each other real quick and not mean to. I told you a while ago, two broken people cannot be together because you're just cutting the shit out of each other. One
Yeah.
of y'all has got to be trying to put yourself back together, and hopefully both of you are. Because if you're
Yes.
not, you're gonna bleed to death.
It's like my longtime mentor used to tell me, he's from Middle Tennessee and he had all these funny Southern colloquialisms, but he said, you get to a point in your relationship, you're like two porcupines, you're in love and you need each other. But when you get together, you needle each other, just
Yeah.
poking the shit out of each other. And that's one of those things where, it gets hard to do because you're probably like me. You're pretty alpha, you're
Yeah.
pretty headstrong personality. I know you are, or you wouldn't be who you are or doing what you do.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a bottom line kind of person. They come to me with their problems and I'm like, okay, here's how to solve that. ABC, do it. Now go do it. Most women, for instance, they would much rather have their problems listened to and
Yep.
heard rather than fixed. And so I've said for years that people, by and large,
Woo.
if they want their problems understood, not taken away, because in a lot of cases, and this is not women, this is everybody. So don't misquote me on this, folks. But most people don't want their problems fixed; they want them understood. And if you took their problems away, they would lose their identity. See, we want to be problem solvers. And
Yeah.
so a woman comes to us, she's got her issues or whatever, and like, let me fix you. No, no, no. She ain't looking for you to fix her. She wants to be heard, like you said. She wants to be understood. She wants to be loved. She wants to be cared for, protected. And just do those things.
Yeah.
And it's funny, women who are so much wiser than we are,
No shit.
they'll solve their own deal.
Yep.
They'll solve their own deal, and they'll do it in a way that you and I never thought about doing it, because we sort of rule by finger and fist. I'm telling you to do this or else. That's kind of the way we approach the world, is finger and fist. Women have a much more delicate way. Now they'll get you. They'll get you. They're dangerous animals.
Shit.
They're dangerous animals, feral creatures. But they have a way of getting their shit done a whole lot more effectively than we do. So I'm learning. Dude, I'm 51 years old, almost 52 years old. I'm still learning these lessons.
Yeah, I'm figuring out sometimes when they come to you with a problem, they just want you to listen.
Yeah.
They want what they say to be valued and took in.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. There's so many times that there's been conversations that has gone in one ear and out the other for me, because it's not that I didn't care, but it was because I knew you wasn't going to let me help or do anything about your problem. So why listen to it? And that's not what they want. They want to be heard and respected and listened to where next time when it comes up, hey, maybe help before it becomes a problem. Or if you like this simple shit like that.
And people would listen to this and think we know what the hell we're talking about when it comes to relationships and women.
We don't.
We suck at it. But these are the lessons we're learning. We suck at it. I have to remind. It's a checklist, dude, and sometimes I forget to go down the list of things I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, I'm still learning, man. I promise you. I've had to sit here. I kid you not. The past couple of months, I've listened to more sermons and more devotionals and stuff in the past 2.5 months than probably the rest of my life combined.
Wow.
Like, And it's not like I've never not loved God, because I have. I've always been a Christian. Just not a good one. And I don't want to be that way no more.
Yeah.
I had a long conversation with an artist the other day. He's one of my favorite artists in Nashville. His name's Brett Cherokee. If y'all have never heard Brett Cherokee, please go listen to him. He is one of my favorites. And that was a conversation that me and him was having. And I was just like, dude, I'm figuring out now that it was just the amount of time that I invested into God while I wasn't getting more back than
Mm,
what I needed, right? And when I started realizing that, that's kind of the same thing with your partner. If you're
yeah.
not investing more time into them, you're not getting back what you should. So if I've got more faith, learned more grace, I've learned more about myself, I've just all this in 2.5 months with just with God, then if I put that effort into a relationship too, then
Yeah.
I probably won't
Think,
screw up next time.
think about it like this. You know, what you said made me think of this idea that if you want to make withdrawals from the bank, you need to invest more in the
Yep.
bank, right? If you want to grow some dividends, you got to invest more and let that interest compound. So I think that's the thing we got to remember. We're too busy trying to make withdrawals, and
Yep.
that's why they're exhausted.
Yep.
I mean, there's only so much they can give. I mean, after a while, damn man, it's like bone on bone. I mean, it's like the gears are squeaking here. You know, the brake metal's touching. There's no lubrication left in
Yeah.
there, and there's just nothing left to give because we've made withdrawal, and they love us, and therefore they're trying to give us what we say we need. But man, we are an exhausting lot, dude. I mean, we really are.
Well,
And you want to make the withdrawals, you got to make the investment.
yeah. And with dudes like me and you, we have to be the worst because our
Yeah,
personalities are the biggest. We think that we're right. We have to get out of our own way. The more me and you get out of our own way, and for any guy listening to this, I challenge you, just get out your own damn way. Like
yeah.
if it ain't worked for you by now, I hate to tell you, it ain't gonna work. Do
Probably
like
not.
it's not going to. But
Yeah.
also, I had someone because I don't know if I've really talked about it on the show yet or not. I kind of took most of the summer off. I barely put out. I put out the bare minimum episodes to keep our sponsors. I didn't want to do the show over the summer. I didn't. Like I thought about quitting during the summer, and taking a job in Nashville. And
Wow.
I lost it. I don't know if you've ever had one of the moments, but I lost that
Oh,
spark of
oh
doing
yeah.
this. It was like when my favorite toy got took from me, I was like, I got to find something else to do because I don't want to do this no more. This isn't enjoyable. I have no positive message to give the world right now. There's no reason I should be behind a microphone because I'm just going to tell all of y'all to go to hell. Like, because
That's right.
that's where I'm at right now. There's no reason for me to talk. And somebody that I value very much, he's like another dad to me. We got to talking one day, and I was like, man, I just don't know what I want to do. I was like, I think I might want to quit and do something else. And I said, I don't know why. And he's like, well, what is your idea of success? And I started thinking about it, and I was like, man, I everybody thinks because I've never been married and I get to go be around all these people all the time, all these artists and women and everything and I make decent money, that that's success. And I was like, nah, what I just had and lost was success to me. Like that was what I wanted. That was success to me. And he was like, would you give up the show to have it back? And I was like, in a heartbeat. He said, well, then
Yeah.
that's success to you. Everybody has a different version of success. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay. And he was like, well, what do you think you need to do to get that success back? And I was like, I don't know. He said, well, what would you normally do? And I was like, I don't know, because I've never made somebody come back. Like I've never made that happen. Like, but when that clicked in my head though, I was like, you know what? How about I try doing something different? If I have
Yeah.
always screwed up and it's me that is the problem, I know I got a good heart. I don't think I'm a bad
Right.
person. I don't do bad shit. I just might mess up, but we all mess up. I was like, you know what? Let's
Right.
do something different. Let's try something different. And the more I tried to be different, the more not only did I find happiness, but I found where my mistakes were. And I
Yeah.
just don't think a lot of us like to admit that we are the reason behind the mistakes. But once you do, the good thing about admitting that you're the problem is you can actually fix that problem.
Yeah, and taking, dude, my buddies that are close to me that kind of hold me accountable and have permission to slap me in the face. The big phrase that we talk about all the time is personal responsibility. The biggest thing that has been lost in society, I believe, in our culture, when it comes to individuals and how they contribute to the world, to their relationships, to themselves, to their families, whatever, personal responsibility.
Yep.
People don't want to think anymore. Thinking is uncomfortable. That we got computers, we got phones, we got talking head news stations that do our thinking for us. Uh, we don't want it. We're lazy. Sitting around the house has become our default setting. People don't want to hustle anymore. They're waiting on somebody to bail them out, and they've got an overblown sense of security that really isn't secure at all. And so people have lost that sense of personal responsibility. And that's the deal is we're a mess, bro. I mean, we are a mess. We're sitting around waiting on somebody else to come take care of us. And that's just not the way we're designed to do. One of the first things that God told Adam to do, he said, I want you to tend the garden and have dominion over it. And so, in other words, he says, one of the first things I'm going to do is I want you to be fruitful and multiply, which is great. We're good at that. That's sex. Let's go. Let's have at it. But then he says, I want you to tend this garden. I want you to have dominion over this garden. That's work. And that work was not a curse. Work was not part of the curse. The adverse effects to working, the sweat of your brow, the thorns and the thistles and the roots in the ground, the earth was going to resist you. That was part of the curse. But work, unadulterated freedom to create, the liberty to go out there and put something in the world that nobody else is doing, that's a blessing. But these days, we've lost that because the adversity that comes with working, we just want to give up, or we burn out, or we don't see the success and the timing. I was telling you before we started here, I get frustrated because I see certain guys that are out there killing it. I've been in this podcast game for almost 10 years, went from having a top 25 category podcast to kind of falling off, and we still have a lot of listeners on the Chad Prather show, a lot of supporters on there. But I see some of my buddies and they're just going, their trajectory is just crazy. And I'm like, hey, first of all, congratulations. I'm happy for you. I'm not envious, but I'm sitting there and it causes me to turn inward and I go, okay, what am I not doing? Like, what am I missing here? Because I know I got the gift of gab. I can talk shit. And so I'm sitting there going, what is it? And then I realized I wasn't taking personal responsibility. I was letting producers handle certain things. I was letting, create, do things. I was, and then, or you just mail it in. Mm-hmm. And I was like, there's no way to be successful at what it is we claim that we love doing if you're not taking personal responsibility for it. Well, that's across the board with relationships, marriages, parenting, school, you name it. Everybody wants to do it, but they want somebody else to do it for them. And I kind of got spoiled. I got spoiled a few years back when I was on Blaze Network. I tell you, I had producers that did everything for me. One of the best things that's happened to me, and it's kind of been having to regain the traction, is being able to bring this studio here. It's in my house. And, my producer comes to my house now, and it's like, okay, we're going to work this thing out. We're going to work hard and we're going to make this thing a good show. But again, it's work. It's work. That part is a blessing. The work is a blessing. God actually gave us the ability to work and go out there and do the hustle. And to the degree that we embrace that, I think we'll be successful.
Yeah, we're the same person. From working in radio to social media to having this show over the past 4 years. We've been as high as 72 in the world. Like at one point in time, we stay as a top 1% show in the world. So our numbers stay good. But the thing is, dude, when I first opened up this studio, one of the things I hated about radio when I ended up getting fired in radio was I wanted to be different. I've always said my morals over money. And is where I wanted to have people on the show that were going to talk about real life things that were going to help the people that were listening, to where like it didn't matter if one person followed you or 1 million people followed you on social media. I wanted to have somebody on that was going to tell a story that was going to impact somebody else's life. And that was all we were for the first year or so. Then we got signed by a management company that we're still signed with, and they're great. But what happened when they started sending all these analytics, everything, and I started focusing on analytics, I was like, okay, well, this was a good episode, but the one after that one, I picked someone off social media that was an OnlyFans girl that had a couple million followers that the episode was shit to me. And don't get me wrong, I've got some friends that still do that, and I love them to death. Some of them have depth and good personalities, and some of them are a rock. Like some of them are just what they are.
Yeah.
Like, but they would get so much more. But what was I putting out into the world was my
Yeah.
thing. It's like I don't want to be this person, but I got lost in it, and I got to where those numbers were so much better. And then I justified it by saying this. I love country music so much, and these artists that I work with need to be discovered and they need to get their name out there. So if I have some of these girls do an episode with me, or just a guy that's got a big social media following too, whether I like him or not, if I have them do an episode with me, then the following episode is a country music artist that I want to push because I like them. By default, they're probably going to get noticed by that person's crowd to help grow their career. And
Mhm.
so for a while, that's what I did. Well, then it became having a lot more of those people on the show to where I kind of lost me and I kind of lost what this was in the beginning of the show. I've always said for the longest time, there's preachers in this world and there's warriors in this world. There's
Mhm.
people that are supposed to get out there and get in the trenches and just deal with the dirt. Like that,
Yeah.
that's me. I want to be the dude that deals with the worst of the worst, but somehow that worst of the worst still has faith. The ones that
Yeah.
everybody's scared to deal with, but they still have a story to tell, and their stories are the ones that I want to hear and put out to the world. To where, I'm not a big Joel Osteen guy, or some folks like that, but like he's for people, and by all means, people that like him, more power to you. I want to hear
Yeah.
that biker. I want to hear that biker, that dude that's been to prison, that's got scars and tattoos, that's been through hell and back. That's the dude I want to
Yeah.
hear his testimony because that does something to me. And that's the kind of stories I want to have out there. The conversation we're having now. That'll help some dude make him go buy flowers for his old lady tonight and be like, hey, look, I listened to Josh and Chad earlier. I'm a dumbass. How can I make you love me more and stop making us fight? Like there's good things you can put out into the world. And I just got lost in it for the longest time, dude. And
Yeah.
I don't care if the numbers go up or down. As long as this is my job, I don't want to go back to that. Because I was kind of miserable with it. And it made me into somebody I didn't like.
Yeah, it's not authentic. Like I said, you want to be comfortable in your own skin, and that is one of the hardest things to be as a man because as a man or a woman, honestly, we have so much thrown our way about what a man should be or women in terms of, they're not an Instagram model, so what their image should be, or it's all kind of weird stuff come
Yeah.
our way. But I like it whenever it talks about John the Baptist. It says the voice of one calling out in the wilderness. Um, and I was like, he was a voice. He wasn't an echo. And so many people in the world today aren't an authentic voice.
Yeah.
They're an echo of what somebody else is saying. And that's again, that's a cheap way to go. It's a way to go. It's a way to go, but it's not the best way to go. Go out there and find your true, authentic voice. And there are going to be people who love it. There's going to be people who ignore it, and there's going to be people who absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
I've been putting out a lot of stuff recently about my faith journey, and just God has restored some things in me. I didn't ask for that, but God started putting some pressure on me a while back, and I said, "What in the world's going on?" It's kind of weird when Jesus knocks on your front door and says, "Hey, I'm here to collect," and you're like, "What?" And he's like, I put some investments in you early on. I'm ready to make some withdrawals. And you're like, dang, I kind of liked what I was doing. He's like, yeah, well, we're going to do it a little different. And so that's sort of been what I've been doing. And it's interesting how many comments I get out there. People send me messages on social media or make a comment in a thread. And they're like, honestly, Chad, we had kind of walked away from you. Like you had gotten a little too raw or you had gotten a little too rowdy. because I went through a season where I was sort of pissed off, man. I was pissed off at the world, and I was,
Woo,
giving the
me
world what
too,
for,
brother.
and you
Me
know what I mean?
too.
And it's like, you gonna hand me a microphone in this condition, and then you gonna turn a camera on, and you gonna let me say whatever I want to say, bro?
Oh,
This became like a therapy session.
yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna get this off my chest. And so, and then I'd sit here and sip bourbon or tequila while I was doing it, and it
Woo.
really got off my chest. And then so a lot of people, and I respect it, a lot of people are coming back now, and they're going, "Hey, Chad, we like this is the version of you we always liked, not the angry one, not the one who was, because again, the wrath of man don't bring about around the kind of consequences that you're hoping that they're going to reap. But and listen, there's a place for anger. I get that. There's in passion and all that. But you get to a point where you're like, I want to be authentically me. I want
Yeah.
my voice. I don't want to be an echo of anybody else. And like it or lump it, like it or lump it, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And there's something liberating about that. I think God created us almost like a musical instrument. And there's Bible verses in this that back this up that I could reference. But I think like a musical instrument, God was kind of looking in the earth and said, I need an instrument to make a certain sound. Guitar don't make that sound, piano don't make that sound, harpsichord don't make that sound. I'm gonna create an instrument that makes a sound. And he created Josh Terry or Chad Prather, and he said, I want you to go out there and make that sound. I created you to make, because nobody else can make that sound.
Yeah, it says he created us to
And
worship.
we all do that. Yeah, we do that. We get
Yeah.
back to that rhythm of life.
Yeah, it
And
says
that's make your sound, man.
it says he created us
It's
to
a
worship.
powerful thing.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
it blows my mind. And I know, like, because I get, since I've started changing up my social media too, because I have, and that was something that somebody me had a problem with, because you do get so lost in the fact that, hey, if I post this with a certain person or I post certain content, yeah, it's clickbait, you're going to get a lot more views and all this kind of stuff, but it's what comes along with it. Like, it's what price are you actually paying, right? Like, it takes away from what's in your soul, or it takes away from a relationship, takes away from your relationship with God, all this kind of stuff. Now that I'm posting the stuff that I want to, I hadn't had a lot of stuff go viral with it or blow up with it, but the piece that's came along with it, and the stuff that the messages that I've got from people saying, this is what I needed today. This was the message I needed today. I'll take 100 of those messages compared to 10,000 of the other messages. And it's like, you know what? That's what I'd rather be feeding. Like, that's the people I'd rather be feeding anyway. Me and you both know this too, about the people that follow us or keep up with us on social media. There's a small percentage that's actually, like, in radio, they're called P1 listeners. I don't know, with you coming from TV and stuff, I don't know what they're actually called there. But in radio, they're called P1
I did,
listeners.
and I did a little radio too back in the day. So yeah,
Okay.
I know about that. So
like, those are the people that's going to buy merch. Those are the people that's going to listen to everything you do. They're going to interact with you the most or whatever. And it's like, you know what? Those are the people I want supporting me anyway. I don't want fair weather people supporting me. I want the people that have the same values, the same people that have the same outlook. And if they are people that are different than me, I want them to be open-minded, where hopefully something that I say brings them closer to God. Because that's literally what I've been praying for lately. Is like, look, I don't think you made me to be a preacher. I really don't. If that was the case, I think you'd tell me, hey, Josh, drop all this podcast stuff. I think the way that, as hard-headed as I am, and the good Lord knowing me the way he does, I think he'd strike this house by lightning and every bit of this equipment would get zapped. That's what I really think. But I think that he gives me and you a tool that he doesn't give a lot of people, to where it's like, me and you can interact with anybody. Me and you can talk to anybody. And from some reason, people are comfortable talking to me and you about faith, because we're not pushy about it, and we just show our love of it. I'm not sitting here telling you, you got to go to church, you got to convert, you got to do this, got to do that. Because like the first time I ever got saved when I was a kid, it was because I was scared of hell. And I think that's the wrong way you teach God's love. Second time I did, it was because I saw what God's love was. The past couple of months, I have felt what it is. And I just have a whole new outlook on it. And I think people like me and you that are so open about talking about everything else in the world, I think we'll bring more people to actually open up and talk about God and talk about their faith by doing what we do than a lot of
Yeah.
people. And I don't say it to brag or anything. I just think it's the
Yeah.
gift that we've been given.
Well, the way I explained it to somebody last year, I said, I have the opportunity to walk into a different arena. We all have our arenas, and there's certain ones that I can walk into that other people can't walk into. People aren't going to listen to you there.
Yeah.
There's a way of delivering a message that you know. And by the way, I mean, there's been times in my life where I was the antithesis of the message. And a lot of people still look at me and they go, who in the hell are you to be telling people? I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not telling anybody how to live. I'm just telling you that when God gets a hold of your life and he comes knocking on the door and he says, okay, listen, we're going to do this together. There's something that just kind of just revolutionizes and revitalizes a man. And you go, okay, I know what I've seen. I know what I tasted. I know what I felt, know what I heard. And it was good. And I would like for the rest of you to understand it as well. And I'm going to use my little feeble, frail method of communicating and see if I can't get those words out there between my brain and yours. And maybe somewhere between us, God will touch them and help you understand them. And so for me, it's just like saying, hey, look, I'm just telling you there's some, you know, sweet honey over here.
Yeah.
If you want to come over and get a little taste of it. So for me, yeah, I'm with you. I think that we have an opportunity that a lot of people don't have. I've had people say to me over the years, they're like, man, you should have been in ministry. And I'm like, well, I am in ministry. It is, if you want to look at it that way, it is. It's just a different arena.
Yeah.
And so there was a responsibility that comes with that as well. You know, you get a lot of messages. I get a lot of messages. There's some people out there that are really hurting, dude. I mean, we laugh about it and joke about relationships and rhythm of life. But there's some folks out there that are really, really hurting, and tragically so, things that they'll never get back. And whether it's a health issue or a loss, tragic loss in their family or whatever. And so, you know, but I'll tell you, it's just, the reality is just as real for that tragedy as it is for those of us who stump our toe.
Yeah.
And I know that reality is for real, is for sure.
Yeah. And it takes people like you that understand that to reach some of those people, though, to where some people just can't, dude. Something like it takes a wordsmith, I guess is probably the best word I know how to use. I can't listen to certain people. Like, I just can't, like, because some people just seem high and mighty. Some people seem like they're on their high horse or whatever. And then some people, you know, it seems like the reason why I think podcasts work, the ones that are good, like, you know, Chad Prather show and the Josh Terry show. Helpless plugs.
You ain't wrong.
Yeah, I know.
You ain't wrong.
We do it all right. The reason why I think they're good is because it's an everyday conversation. It's people eavesdropping on an everyday conversation. Me and you didn't pre-plan this. We didn't say we were touching a topic. We are just running with it. So when people hear an everyday conversation like this, and they know it's two guys that are just sitting here and they're talking about relationships, they're talking about God, they're talking about faith, they're talking about life, love, happiness, whatever, people start to realize, well, if these two everyday guys can sit here and talk about it and be open about it, I can do it. To where it's like, it is a different arena for us, but at the same time, the people that sitting there, they can do the same thing if they wanted to. Like, they can feel the way that we are. It's not, they cannot view themselves any differently than we do, or we are, is what I mean. Like, I feel like we can connect with a lot of folks, and I take it as like I'm proud that I'm able to do that. Like, it makes me feel good that the people that listen to the show, I hope they look at themselves the same way I look at me. And I hope they connect with me the way that if I was listening to them, I would connect. And it takes, you know, people like you to where they get that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, it's a sin of comparison. We were joking about it earlier, talking about, you look at these other people who are doing it. I don't want to compare myself to anybody. I don't want to be jealous. I don't want to be envious. And to the best of my knowledge, I'm not. I'm thankful for others who do well. And I try to learn from them. I try to be humble enough to go say, okay, what's the magic? What are they doing that's doing well? Because at the end of the day, we want to punch through the smoke, right? There's so much smoke. out there. There's so many voices vying for people's attention. And it's a precious thing. And I don't use that word lightly. It is such a humbling deal to know that people will give their time that they'll never get back. They will give their time and attention to either watching a show or listening to a podcast or coming out to a live show. It's amazing to me that you are worth their investment.
Yeah.
And so I want to treat that as a precious thing, right? That's a treasure. And it's deeply humbling when you think about, people, they only got so much time and they chose to give some of it to you. And I think there's more and more of that because people are attracted to the real. They really are. They're attracted to people who just like, they're not trying to be anybody else's cookie cutter. Mm-hmm. So that's the trick is dudes getting, and you know what? It ain't just about podcasting. It's about being a lineman and being a first responder and being an electrician and being a plumber and being a CEO. It's all about still being authentically you and doing it, with excellence the way that only you can do it, and so that people miss you when you're gone. And that's the key for men to get motivated to say, be authentically you, do the best damn job. And when it's all said and done, people go, you know what? He did it right. And that was what the real you did.
Yeah, there's not enough people out there that are unapologetically themselves anymore.
Yeah.
I think I am so unapologetically me that I don't know another way to be. Yeah. I know you're the same way, dude. Like if I make a mistake, I made a mistake because of me. I have no one else to blame in this world because of me. I'm not going to blame my actions on my parents, on somebody else, whatever. I made that mistake because of me. Same thing when I succeed. Like there are people that have their hands in my success that help with succeeding, but most of the time it's because I made a decision to do something. And I want it to be where I live and die by me. And it's just where every one of those people that you just named, every one of those jobs or whatever, if you're unapologetically yourself, there's a sense of freedom that comes with that. It's almost like you can't make a mistake. You can't, obviously everybody makes mistakes, but if you do, you learn from it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And well, I was just going to say, and also if you're pursuing excellence and you're doing it to the best of your ability, when you do make a mistake, you don't have a problem owning it.
Yeah.
Because that's not normal for you.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I did mess up on that. Let's do it another way. Let's go back and fix it. Because you don't have a reputation for screwing up. You have a reputation for doing it right. And then when you make a mistake, people go, "Dang, he don't ever mess up like that." And you're like, "Yep, you know what? I'm still human. Let's go fix it." And having humility to do that makes you even more powerful.
Yeah, dude. I don't have that problem because I screw up all the time. Yeah.
Me too. Who am I kidding?
Man, I'll tell you, I must have spent, not to put too much of my business on Jump Street, I must have spent the past 2 weeks apologizing. I've talked about most apologizing you ever seen in your life, but it was honest because it wasn't like, even if I wouldn't have got a chance to apologize for some stuff, I had to apologize to myself and ask for forgiveness, even without a person around. Like I had to pretty much have a talk with God at one point in time and be like, look, I know that this was in my life. I know that I'm the reason that it went to hell. I had to ask him to forgive me because I knew that I had let myself down and other people down. Like when you can actually have that conversation and you can start admitting that you made those mistakes and that you're an issue. Like I said, the good thing about it though is you can fix that. When you want to play the victim, and you want to be one of these people that are always the victim, you're going to stay the victim because you refuse to see that anything that you've ever done is bad. It's everybody else is bad. Everybody else is bad. Hell, I don't want to be the victim. I want to be the person that fucked up because if I did, I could not do it again. I made a video a couple weeks ago and for me working out, I'm just walking the track every day. Like I'm doing 3 to 6 miles every day. And I take the time to listen to sermons and pray and everything while I'm out there. It's just like my peace time or whatever.
Hmm.
And I was out there and I had said this prayer or whatever. And about 2 seconds after I got done praying, I realized what I was praying for was I hope the person that's in my shoes the next time gets it right. And like
Hmm.
they make it right to where I screwed up. And 2 seconds after I said that prayer, I was like, why am I praying for this? Not that I didn't want those people to be happy, but I was like, why am I not praying that I get it right next time? Why am I not
Yeah.
praying that I learn and I get it right next time?
Yeah.
And it's me admitting that I screwed up, that I got it wrong in the first place. Now that I know that, let's fix it.
Yeah. And that goes back to that personal responsibility, right? It
Yeah.
goes back to saying, okay, look, I'm willing to admit when I was wrong and when I screwed up. And then, you can't boomerang too far the other way. And then you wind up groveling and begging people to accept you again. Oh, no, I
Yeah.
messed up. Please forgive me. And it's like, okay, yeah, you let all that shit go. Now pull your bootstraps up and
Yeah.
let's rock and roll. Let's get back to it. Because you're right. People do, they manufacture their oppression. They get into a narrative of victimhood. And when you do that, you lose your sense of agency. Like, I'm the one who's in control. I'm the host of my life. I'm the
Yep.
MC here. I get to determine the direction of the show. It's me and God, and I'm following his voice as best I can. It's so whenever I forfeit my agency, it's Jesus take the wheel, but ain't nobody driving the car at that point in time. And so you're destined to run that thing up a tree on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. Because you've gotten to a point where you said, you know what, I'm shirking my responsibility. I'm gonna navel gaze and drag my dick in the dirt, and I'm gonna feel sorry for myself all the time. And there's no sense of agency. There's no personal responsibility, no accountability, no fear of consequences, no pursuit of excellence. There's no hustle. Everything's lethargic, and we just wait on somebody else to come along and fill those shoes and do it for us.
Yeah. That's why I commend people like you and anybody, male or female, that actually can admit that they
Yeah,
screwed up. I really do.
yeah,
I don't think I realized, not to go to too much of my upbringing because I don't want my mom to be put on full blast here because I'm trying to amend that relationship anyway.
yeah. We love you,
Uh,
Mama.
I'll be 37 September the 10th. And
Okay.
I have yet to hear my mother apologize or say she was wrong about anything in this life.
Yeah,
Like, but that was normalized to me to where it's like, you know, I'm not saying I'm sorry. I'm not taking ownership. So it was never something that I knew how it was important for people to do that. And now I'm
yeah,
getting, because I'll tell you this, I think back in February or March, I told a lie to the girl I was with at the time. And it was a lie that was just completely stupid, that it should not have been told, that if I'd have just told the truth from Jump Street, that it was so innocent that it would have been fine. There might have been a little bit
yeah.
of a headache there, a little bit of bump in the road, but the lie made it 10 times worse. I don't know why I didn't own up to it. Looking back at it now, the lie was easier to tell than the truth, but the truth would have just
Yeah.
literally set me free right off the bat to where, like, now, oh, I tell the truth about everything. Like,
Right.
I probably am like over honest now.
Yeah.
But like I just didn't understand until recently. Like, just go ahead and take it on a chin. Because if you take it on a chin, at least you're not losing trust.
Yeah.
And I wish more people would just go ahead and accept everyone screws up, everyone makes a mistake. If you go to your partner or you go to your friend, whoever, face it head on, you'll be better off. And I just don't get why more folks don't get that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's tough. And because, again, I think our pride gets in the way, our fear of rejection. If I tell the truth, people aren't going to like me for who I am. Or
Yeah.
if I confess that I was being dishonest in this, then people will never trust me again. That's a hard one. It
Mhm.
really is. And we're all deceptive people. I mean, every
Oh,
one of
yeah.
us. I mean, Jeremiah says in the Old Testament, says, the heart's desperately wicked and deceitful above all things. And so we love to make ourselves look a little bit bigger and better than we are. And again, it goes back to being authentically you and being genuine and being real. We like to pad the numbers and we like to promote and push and pump our chest out there. at the end of the day, people see through the bullshit. They do. They know when you're not being the real you again. It goes back to pursuing excellence, and then you make a mistake and you can own it. People know when you make a mistake, because if you're authentically you and then all of a sudden you're walking in falsehood, yeah, they can tell real quick where you stepped off the path. But you're right. I hope that people will get back to a place of saying, hey, we're all human. We're all in this thing together. We all make mistakes, and we all screw up. And let's get back to a little forgiveness. When you're talking about relationships in the book of Ephesians, where it says, husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church. That means Christ was the agency who laid down his life in service and in sacrifice and released forgiveness. He was the agency for forgiveness to come in. And so I think men particularly need to be the agent of forgiveness. We need to be the ones who have the broader scope of vision and the wisdom that comes with that, and a little bit of the patience and long suffering, so that when we see those people who are kind of falling by the wayside, we say, okay, let's stop here for a second. Let's ease up on the hustle, and let's pull these people back in, and let's bring a place of redemption. I think we got to be the first ones to release that. It's a powerful thing. It's a great responsibility being a man. It ain't always fun, but I think we've got and let me say this, Josh, and I'll hush. There's certain things
you don't ever
God
have to hush,
will
Chad. You don't ever have to hush.
It's a podcast. We got to fill the time. But I will tell you this, and this is something that I've been meditating on. I'm going to do a little video about this soon. But there's certain things that God can help you do and strengthen you and give you the power to do. And there's certain things he'll never give you the power to do. So like if you want to be humble and merciful and kind and gentle and you want to do those things, God, you want to be self-controlled, all those things. You want to do those things, God will help you do those things. Yep. But things like not forgiving or revenge or retribution, the Bible says, vengeance is mine, I'll repay. God says, well, that's my job. You're trying to do my job. I can't empower you to do my job. And the funny thing about that is God offers grace that you and I don't give. That's the reason why God says, hey, let me do the retribution, because I know where that person is. I know how to get their attention more effectively than you do. So let me go get them rather than you worrying about it. And so your job is just to release it. And the other thing, God will give you power to release it. God will give you power to let that stuff go. But see, we're so busy trying to do the stuff that God said he'd take care of that we're exhausted, man. Absolutely. And that's another reason why we lose our agency. We don't have, grace is not the unmerited favor of God. We've misinterpreted that. Grace is very merited. For instance, Peter says that God gives grace to the humble. That's a condition. He gives grace to the humble and he resists the proud. Grace is not unmerited favor. Grace is the power of God to do what he's called you to do. So in other words, if he tells you to do it, he's going to give you the strength to go do it. That's the grace on your life. And we're kind of forfeiting that grace by trying to do stuff he didn't call us to do.
Absolutely. And if you release it, you got to remember it says that he will rebuild you in front of those who destroyed you. And that has got to be the best revenge of all time. But I mean,
huge.
It's huge.
Huge.
He will rebuild you in front of those who destroyed you. I love that. I can't tell everybody why this right here means so much to me, but but I will eventually. But this right here, you probably already know the 70 times 7, but I'm gonna read the whole thing anyway. In Matthew 18, Peter asked Jesus, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? 70 times. And Jesus' response was not just 7, but 70 times. In life, there are going to be people, even ones who were supposed to love us, especially ones who were supposed to love us, who are going to let us down big time. Sometimes they're going to do it repeatedly. And let me tell you, the pain is indescribable. It will eat you alive if you let it. But forgiveness is like a key that unlocks the door of a prison cell that betrayal holds you hostage in. 70 times 7 isn't a literal number, but it simply means there should be no limit to forgiveness. It doesn't mean a doormat with no boundaries. It means offer grace upon grace like Jesus does, because grace is the only thing that truly sets us free. Every time you remember, forgive. Every time it stings, forgive. Again and again, 70 times 7.
Yeah. It's powerful stuff. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to release that, to forgive. That's why The book of Hebrews talks about there's a root of bitterness that springs up and it defiles many. That bitterness, when it grows up, the fruit that falls off that tree, man, is poisonous. It's so the bitterness, the unforgiveness, the resentment, those are some of the hardest things ever. I heard a funny story years ago about a dude who paid his alimony every month in pennies. He would go get bank bags
Yeah.
full of pennies and he'd dump it on his ex-wife's front yard. And I was like, that's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some strong retribution. You got to be pretty pissed off. Or the guy that started paying his alimony with checks that had the picture of him and his new wife on it.
Oh yeah, I've heard that one.
So it's like we get pretty extreme with this stuff. But at the end of the day, man, it's like drinking poison and waiting on somebody else to die. So we got to put the bottle down at some point and say, man, just let God handle them. Bless those that curse you. Bless and do not persecute. Bless and do not curse. That is an antithetical thing. It's a contradiction. It's a paradox in the way the way our brains work. Because I want to slap the shit out of somebody sometimes, and what does that lead to? Now they got a sore face and I got guilt. So it doesn't heal anything.
Dude, there's a preacher out. You're in Texas anyway, right?
Right.
All right. So before the end of this year, there's a preacher that I'm going to see in Houston who this is my dude. And somehow I've came across him on TikTok. I cannot quit listening to this guy. I just have a connection with this dude from the first time I heard his story. His name is Keon Henderson. If you've never listened to this dude, I think you would probably like him. He is amazing. But what you were just talking about slapping the shit out of somebody. He always talks about like fight or flight. And his first response, the way he grew up, the way he used to be a drug dealer when he was a kid and all this kind of stuff, he's like, my first response is always to throw these hands. Always to throw these hands. But who is a worse person? The person that reacts or the person that makes me want to throw these hands because they acted first, or me who had a chance to react to that person? I had a longer time to sit there and look at the situation to see how I should react to how you just handled the situation. Who's worse off? And I've never thought of that before. Like, it really doesn't matter how you act in a situation. It's how I react that really says anything about me. You can sit here and cuss me up and down all day. And if I sit here and take it on the chin, yeah, you might think I'm weak, but does it really matter what you think about me? Right. Because at the end of the day, I'm not fixing to sit here and get into a big altercation with you and ruin my day with it. I'm not going to go to jail because I put my hands on you. I'm not going to let you ruin it. It's all perspective. I'm not going to let you ruin my life because of how you're acting towards me. And I'm really trying to implement that in my life because I do got some anger issues. Because like I was raised with the same shit. Like, I'll be the first one there's a couple things like I'm quick to throw these hands. I don't want to be that way. I haven't done it in a very long time, but I don't want to have that mentality to where it's like, why am I letting this person get to me?
Yeah.
I don't want to be that way no more.
Yeah, and we're bad about even letting strangers online piss us off and ruin our day or get our blood pressure up. And it's like, I don't know you. I've never met you. You have no bearing in my life. I appreciate you being there.
Yeah.
Thanks for being one of the number and one of the people that are out there watching, listening, paying attention. But man, you can't dictate to my life. That's the thing. I can't invest in you personally unless I love you.
Yep.
And you can't hurt me unless I love you. I'm not going to grieve. Like, if my children make a bad decision, I will grieve with them because I love them. If a stranger's kid makes a mistake, I'm like, dang, that sucks. I'm empathetic, but I'm not necessarily grieving over it. One of my kids does. I'm grieving because that's a love thing. Yeah. So if there's people out there that don't love me, they don't care if I live or die. They might see my obituary posted on Facebook somewhere and be like, yeah, I think I saw a video with him in it one time. But at the end of the day, 5 minutes later, they forgot my name. They're on to the next reel. And so I can't live my life based on that. And I'll tell you this, Josh, if the acceptance of man will make your life, the rejection of men will ruin your life. Ooh. So we can't it's like Rudyard Kipling said, if I can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. See, winning and losing, they're not crosstown rivals. They live next door to each other. Truth and error are not crosstown rivals. They live next door to each other. It's easy to slip in and out of both. I can be walking into truth and put a foot in the error yard, and it's like, oh, I just poisoned the well. Let me get back over here. Same with victory, winning and losing. But at the end of the day, winning and losing, both of those things, rejection, acceptance, all of that stuff's an imposter. So if I'm sitting here waiting on somebody to approve me and make me feel good, as I said earlier, pat my bobo, if I'm waiting on that, well, as soon as that doesn't show up, it destroys my life.
Yep.
So I can't hold, I can't treat either one of those things as a valid deal. I've got to, there's one to hear from. There's one whose approval I want to hear. That's God, my Father. And I want to hear his approval more than anything else. I was talking to a lot of people have known a fellow by the name of James Robinson for a long time. James is, he's a preacher, evangelist. He's filled stadiums for, he's 80 years old now. I was talking to him on the phone the other day, and James has influenced me a lot in my life. And I was talking to him the other day, and he said, my number one goal in life right now is to ask my Father what will make him happy. He said, ever notice, he said, in families, they'll always like, well, what's going to make mama happy? What's going to make mama happy? What's going to make her happy? Nobody ever says, what's going to make daddy happy? Unless they're operating out of fear or something like that. But nobody ever says, oh, let's please dad. He said, I'm at a point in life where I'm saying, I want to know what's going to please my Father. My heavenly Father, the one who created me, redeemed me, I want to know what's going to make him happy. And if I'm doing that, I ought to be pretty content. I ought to be pretty solid at that point. And, I got in a big old argument with Satan last night over some stuff. You ever do that, man? You just find yourself shouting at the devil. And boy, you calling on Jesus and you calling down heaven and you rebuking Satan, and boy, you standing on the word of God. You cuss him a little bit too. And so, and I'm having this conversation both, with God, with Satan, and myself. I'm talking all three of us, right?
Yeah.
And last night I'm walking through my bathroom. I'm taking a piss. I ain't even let up, dude. I didn't even let up to take a piss. Like I like shook it off and kept on praying.
Mm-hmm.
I was going. Boy, I was in church last night right here in my house, and I'm sitting there going, you know what? The thing that pissed me off, Josh, I'll tell you, is I had some thoughts that started dwelling in my head about some stuff that happened, and it just started to kind of torment me. And I was sitting there. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like
I know,
something
boy.
and you're
Let's
like,
go.
boy,
Let's go,
Chad. Man, I want to deal with this. I want to slap. I sent 2 text messages, and then I immediately unsent them.
Yep.
And this morning they go, what did you unsend? And I said, I'll call you on the phone. We'll talk about it. And we actually this morning had a great conversation that was very good, very redemptive. But I said, but last night, I got up. I walked around the house. I said, Chad, stop this. You're a man. God lives inside of you. God created you. You're a man. You're being immature. It's time to grow up. And back to what I said, I heard the voice of my dad in my head saying, it's time to get your ass up and move. And so I heard my heavenly Father, the voice of my Father, and I just took off into Satan and lit into him too. So yeah, it's a battle, bro. It's a battle because you know what we do? We immediately want to go into that fetal position when things get tough, and we want to suck our thumb, rocking back and forth, hiding in the corner or under our desk, humming "Jesus loves me." And bro, that ain't what a man does. No. That's just not what men do. It's time to stand up, be bold, and say, you know what? I fucked up, and it's time to move forward. Come hell or high water, it's time to move forward.
Dude, the fact that you just said that, we're the same person. We're the same person. I'm telling you, oh my gosh, Lord, woo. So I have those conversations all the time, especially like everybody prays different, I imagine. Like I'm sure everybody prays different. I think for the most part, me and God have more conversations than me actually praying. Yeah. Like I really do think that. I've really learned what deception is more than anything over the past couple of months. And I really do think that there's a lot of the times that the devil is toying with me and messing with me. And then I want to feel like I'm getting tested. And then like, I'll have that conversation, and like halfway through I get, like you saying, you don't stop to take, or you don't need the middle of a piss. You ain't stopping. Like you're in it, that conversation. And It's just where I think the more passionate you get about those things,
Yeah.
the more that you
Yeah.
know that that door is open for you, though. You know that you're actually talking to God, and
Yeah.
that you have that good of a relationship with God, though. And the fact that you unsent those messages, you probably heard the same shit that I've heard when I've
Yeah.
unsent those messages, when I didn't pick up my phone and make the phone call. Like,
Yeah.
because but I also at some point in time learned that phone call and those text messages have done nothing but put me another 10 steps back. They
Right.
did nothing. And I've learned that for the majority of my problems have been my problems. It's been projecting insecurities. It's been projecting my
Yeah.
trauma. It's been projecting my mental health. When if I could come to you and have a conversation with you instead of bullshit towards you, one, you're probably going to respect me more and it's going to be a way better conversation. But two, I can't unload my shit on you when I don't know whether I'm unloading the truth on you or not.
Right.
Anyway,
Right. Yeah, and that's the deal. At the end of the day, you gotta well, it's like fishing in a swimming pool. There ain't nothing in there. You gotta stock the pond, right? You gotta put store up some wisdom, store up some of God's word. Listen to your mentors, listen to the people who are wiser than you, store that stuff up. So when those situations come and God tosses that hook in the water, there's something that'll actually bite the hook.
yeah.
And if you're fishing in a swimming pool where you haven't stocked anything, you're wasting your time. So that's why I tell people, I say, we got to get back to critical thinking. We got to get back to reading. And I mean, some worthwhile stuff and some, kind of putting some wisdom back into our souls. Because these are trying times, man. We're living in a weird world these days. I
Ooh.
don't have to tell you. People are nuts. It's insane. People don't know who they are. They got identity issues. Everybody's a victim. Cancel culture. I mean, the politics of everything is crazy, and it's just magnified and multiplied in front of us day in and day out on our screens and our whatever. So we need to be sober minded. We really do need to get back to some critical thought and some common sense. And it's hard to do that if you're not putting in the work.
Yeah, well, hopefully there'll be more folks like you and me
Yeah,
that take, and I'm not trying to say that we're better than everybody else for anybody comes after my ass, but there needs to be more people taking a stand on our, like, even when the Olympic stuff happened with the opening ceremonies, I've
yeah,
seen both sides of the argument to where
of course.
people say it was this, people say it was that. I don't really give a shit anymore. I still think it was meant to be what it looked like to me, to be in all
Right.
honesty. But what gave me hope when I saw that was the amount of people that came out and was like, okay, this is enough. Just on that. Like, we've had enough. Like, let's stand up for our faith. I hope there's more people that are starting to come out, regardless of the backlash they might get on social media. I've always felt like, okay, you remember when everything was going on a couple of years ago with people kneeling for the flag, and everybody in the
Yep.
damn world, it seemed like, was against it for whatever reason. Everybody in the United States, anyway, was against it, besides for the people that were kneeling for the flag, right?
People doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, besides for just the ones that were doing it. I think that I want there to be so many people that are starting to do that with faith that is like, look, you can love who you want to love. You can do what you want to do in your own home or whatever. But we're starting to get so far gone that if we don't reel this thing back in,
Yeah.
we're literally setting ourselves up for doomsday. I
Yeah.
want there to be more people like me and you, and there's a whole lot of other folks out there anyway. I love Granger Smith and folks like
Yeah.
that, to where it's like, you know what, if this is the platform that I'm given and I've been blessed to be able to do this for a living, if I'm going to be just as passionate going to a concert and screaming at the top of my lungs for my favorite artist, I should be just
Yeah.
as passionate screaming for God. God's
Yeah.
actually done something for me to where Sturgill Simpson's never paid anything for me. I've had to buy his
Yeah.
concert tickets. Jesus paid the ultimate price for me, Like,
Yeah.
why am I not being more vocal towards him and standing up and taking a stand for him? I'm tired
Yeah.
of us being quiet about it because
Yeah.
we're expecting the backlash. And you don't care about the backlash. I don't care about the backlash. I think that's why people like me and you, maybe we've been hardened over time too. Maybe we're like the people that's like, you know what? Damned if we do, damned if we don't. But I'd
Yeah.
rather stand up for my God and be loud about it, to where if somebody else is going to be that loud, on their platform about the opposite, I should be just as be able to be loud
Yeah.
about mine.
Man, I can't add a single word to that. I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed in life. I've lived so much life and so many cool things
Yeah.
and experiences and just being able to see all the parts of the world and the people of the world. And it's a wild deal. And I look back and I go, I got a good friend of mine who just passed away from cancer at the
I'm
age of
sorry, brother.
50, that I went to high school with, one of my fellow baseball players, one of my best friends. And we're not promised tomorrow, dude. We are
Nope.
not promised tomorrow. And the fact that we've got that, and we're kind of we're a bunch of cracked clay pots, but the glory of God shines through the cracks. Take every opportunity we've got to put what we can out there. And again, it's not we're not asking people. We're never asking people to, when they embrace that, and everybody lays awake at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to, ask themselves the hard questions of their existence and why they're here. And,
Yep.
is there a God and what happens after you die? There's a lot of people out there who we all have those questions. And a lot of guys bury them because they think if they get the answer, it's going to turn them into a bunch of limp-wristed dudes that, are suddenly carrying their Bible out or preaching in the street corner. And it's like, no, man, I'm just telling you, there's a Savior that died for you, and he wants to rescue you both from yourself now and the future to come.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's a pretty good promise. And you can still be a man. Like, you can still be a tough dude. You can still go drink blood if you want and have a beer with the boys. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be the way you used to be. You're going to have a different desire and passion, and it's a pretty powerful thing. It's a very big high in life to have that.
It's a freedom. I don't care what anybody else has said. To me, like, I guess it don't bother me to say this because I don't know. It was when I surrendered a couple months ago, and I just was like, God, I know I've been saved before. I've been baptized. I know that you love me. I've always loved you, but I've never gave myself to you. I'm sitting here saying that even if I don't get back what I want, I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it because I'm tired of living this way. I want to do what you want me to do. You like, my way clearly isn't working. Nothing has gone bad for me since then. It's not that I have felt like I was less of a man. It's not like anything. If anything, I feel more manly being able to talk about it. It's like I feel like, you know what, if you're not able to talk about God openly, but you can talk about some bullshit openly, like, like, I mean, think about the way that I just justify everything. I have to simplify everything in my head. If you believe that Jesus died for all of our sins, and that's the reason why we're going to get to go to heaven one day, is surrendering ourselves and giving our life to God. And you can't talk about him openly, but you can talk about who won the Braves game last night at the top of your lungs, or you can do anything like that. Like, your priorities ain't in order. Like, you should have pride in the fact that the person that gave their life for you, you've decided to live for them. Yeah. Like, there's something about that to me that when I decided a couple months ago, I was like, you know what? I'm not half-assing this anymore. There was a quote.
Boldness.
Yeah, dude. There's a quote, and I got to. I know I wrote it down. I done got to where I write down stuff, and then my dumb ass loses it. Like 30 seconds later, I can't keep.
I'm the same way,
dude. I make so many notes in my phone, and then I go to look for it, and it's like, you moron. Like,
I've learned that search feature at the top works pretty good if you can remember remember a keyword. I've been able to go back and find some old stuff on there because I'm bad about that. But again, I'm at the age, I got a good excuse,
Oh, well,
but
I do not.
thank God for the notepad in the phone.
Yeah, I know.
But
I know it's got half in it. But it's pretty much saying, if I recall correctly, it's like, God doesn't give whole promises to half efforts.
Yeah.
You can't be half in and give half of yourself to him and expect to get his whole blessing. I think that's might be what it is. Like, it's like,
well, I mean, would you give your daughter away to a man? Like, it's time for her to get married. Would you give your daughter, would you invest your daughter's life to a man and give her away to a dude who's only going to love her half the time?
No.
I mean, absolutely not. You'd never do that. And so God's got precious things for people, powerful things for people, and they're pricey, they pricey things. They cost something,
Yeah.
and He's not going to give it to you if you're just going to halfway take it and just stick it in a drawer. It's just not the way it works.
Now you got to show them off like Chad Prather's doing, Josh Terry's
Yeah, baby.
doing. Anyway, dude, I love
Yeah.
this. I appreciate you doing this. We're going to do this again. I'm excited about doing your show. I'm coming to do your show soon.
Yeah, you're gonna do it. I'm gonna give you some dates here in the next 24 hours. My producer has been in Italy. He's been over there for almost 2 weeks now. He went over there to get engaged. I'm not sure he ever did it. He's on his way back now.
Well, I hope
so
he did.
I've
saying
been
that.
I know he spent a lot of money to go do it if he didn't.
Well.
So he's been over there for 2 weeks. I've been using a substitute producer that's a great dude, but he's on his way back. So I'm gonna get you some dates. I want you to come on the Chad Prather show and hang out, brother. We'll have a good time.
Dude. Well, man, I appreciate it. Drop your social media, man, and we'll get off here. And tell me
if people go to watch Chad.
Show.
Yeah, if you type in Chad Prather Show, if you put that in there anywhere podcast, I promise you it's going to show up. Rumble, YouTube, all the places where you can listen. But yeah, Instagram, Twitter, which is a shit show, all that at Watch Chad, TikTok's Chad Prather. Listen, there's a whole bunch of fakes out there. So folks, I'll never ask you for your personal information, and I ain't trying to date your mama. So just remember there's a lot of fake stuff out there. But no, we're having a good time on social media. It's a good time. We actually started a group recently, a private group called the Prather Posse. And so, people can come over there and jump in. We got some special stuff that we do in there, kind of crazy. But yeah, man. And then watchchad.com is where all the shows are and live shows, live entertainment. I'm headed to Alaska. It's going to cool off a little bit. And then we've got prathertees.com is where people can get the merch.
Cool, dude. Well, man, I look forward to it and I appreciate it. And dude, I love to see the journey you're on. It's very inspiring even to me. I love that we're on it at the same time. I don't think God makes mistakes. And I'm glad that me and you met when we did. And the fact that we're going through the same stuff at the same time. I just got a feeling that me and he's probably gonna bump into the same road somewhere and something special is gonna happen, even more out of it.
I love it, brother. Josh, keep kicking ass and doing the thing you do, baby.
You too, Bubba. Well, I will see you later. And thank each and every one of y'all for listening to Josh Terry Podcast. We will holler at y'all next time.